I'd like to say good morning, St. Louis, as well as Chi-Town in the house, as well as New York, as well as the Bahamas, Florida, Oregon, Virginia, Alabama, also Georgia. I'm going to take just a moment and give you my understanding as to what I believe is actually occurring in what we know as the 21st century. I believe, in all honesty, that our level of developed mind hasn't evolved enough to know that we don't know. The reason we're not pushing with such tenacity and vigor is because we don't know the urgency of why we should push as hard as we should. Many have come to the realization that death is normal. My question to all of you: do you think that it's normal to one day have a good time with your family and later that night suffer from a massive heart attack? Do you think it's normal to one day have a good time with your family and suffer from a stroke that night? Do you think it's okay to go in for a routine checkup and later find out that you have stage 4 cancer? Do you think it's normal for one day to get a knock at the door, tell you that your whole family has been killed in an accident? We must travel deeper. Many of you are saying that it must be God's will. I don't necessarily believe you know who God is. I truly believe that we have been deceived. And the reason I'm saying we've been deceived is basically due to the fact that most cosmologists and men of intellect, as we consider them to be, believe that the universe was formed 13.8 billion years ago. However, the living organism, meaning humanity, didn't show up until 4.5 billion years ago. That clearly tells me there is a great significance in disparity as it relates to the numbers of 13.8 and 4.5. So that tells me we must be 9 years or 9 billion plus years away from the truth, which is 13.8 billion, which is the beginning. The reason we are out looking for something outside ourselves and trying to get back to what we believe is truth, which is becoming one with God, which is the truth in all honesty. However, we don't necessarily know who God is. We've formulated and came up with the opinion that God is a person. You've also formulated and came up with the idea that you are a person. Let me get you all to understand what you are incapable of grasping, unfortunately, is that you're not what you think you are. You are literally a perfect light. Unfortunately, you haven't reached perfection to know that you are, because once you reach perfection, you will be at the beginning, 13.8 billion years ago. In other words, you will bring the beginning to the now, and you will become, or you would have the ability to understand what you were incapable of understanding before. But until you get that level of intellect, you're not going to know, because you have not the power to be able to encode the information and the data that's streaming all around you. You fail to realize there's so much that you cannot see, nor can you hear. And you're not looking to see it nor hear it because the mind at undevelopment is a child. That's why children like playing with baby dolls until they reach a certain level of intellect. They're no longer interested in the baby doll because they've exceeded beyond that level of ignorance. And they subsequently started directing their true self towards becoming who they were predestined to become. However, unfortunately, those that are teaching them from the time they left their mother's womb, not only left, but while they were in their mother's womb, they didn't know the truth, because the gravitational force is also upon them while in the mother's womb. You ask yourself, why is that? Because the seed that your mother gave birth to, which was you, was fertilized by your father's sperm, and subsequently your father was in the prison. In other words, confined in gravitation. Your mother was confined in gravitation, so your mind hadn't completely evolved even though you were in the mother's womb, because you were still a part of the makeup of your daddy and your mama. However, the question we need to ask ourselves, was that your father and was that your mother? You believe it was, and I'm not going to argue the fact that it wasn't. But at the deeper level of truth, you are a perfect sound. You are a perfect light. Unfortunately, you never reach that level of sound to know that you are, because you have not the ability to encode beyond your level of ignorance. Subsequently, the ignorance became the law. And as a result, we've been following that law since the world was created 13.8 billion years ago. However, what people fail to realize is 13.8 billion years ago is in your mind. You're literally becoming form, but you're going the wrong way, so you never reach the beginning of who you are really capable of becoming. The Bible clearly talks about you are the brightest of his rims. The Bible speaks in terms of Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, first and last. Unfortunately, those that came before us didn't have the aptitude to even interpret the Bible, and as a result, they turned the Bible into fables and stories, and nothing has changed since the beginning of creation. You cursed 3 to 4 generations back, and you don't even know it. You fail to realize how much power you possess. It's unfortunate and it's sad. However, I'm one to believe that it's not too late for us to be able to take that mountain and be able to build something that we've never thought possible. But in order to do this, we must not concern ourselves with those that don't understand us. They didn't understand flight back in the day, Orville and Wilbur Wright. They didn't understand the Wright brothers. They probably thought they were crazy. They didn't understand a lot of things back in the day. They probably thought Albert Einstein was crazy. Energy equals matter, mass at the speed of light, which is matter at the speed of light. Antimatter and matter subsequently becomes minus friction and heat, which is a different reality. We have so much greatness dwelling within us, but we're looking for the greatness outside of us, but it's in us. You must become what you're seeking to find. You must become that truth. That truth is God. The question is, are you God? Many of you can't necessarily understand what I'm saying when I ask that question, are you God? God is not who you think God is. God is a perfect sound. Let's go to school for just one moment, if we may. Think about the universe, 4 forces that are up on the universe. We're talking about gravitational, electromagnetic, weak and nuclear, and strong force. Gravity is a force that literally binds everything within this universe that you physically see. Gravity plays an interesting part in everything. It keeps it bound to the earth, gravity. So in other words, if without gravity, you would fling into space without gravity, meaning your mind would go deeper. So as a result, your mind doesn't go into space because gravity grips you even while in your mother's womb. Subsequently, you take that as normal, but it's not normal. Your mind hadn't reached a level of development to break free from the gravity, which is really information and data. The question is, those that came before us didn't have this level of aptitude to understand that they didn't understand. And those that understand, people look at them as though they're a little weird. For those of you that understand me, don't consider yourself as being weird. Consider yourself as being normal, but those that look at you as being weird or abnormal, I'm not going to call them illiterate. I'm going to call them incapable of understanding the information they need to understand in order to know that they know nothing. In other words, they are so many orders of magnitude away from the truth, they don't even know it. So they're chasing the things of this world, physical. Lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, and the pride of life will lead you one place, and that place is your grave. And that's due to the gravity, the gravitational pull that's pulling you down. If I take a ball and drop it on the ground, it's going to go with a certain level of velocity depending upon how far up I drop the ball. If I drop the ball relatively low, 3 inches from the ground, it's not going to carry that much force. But if I drop the ball from the beginning of creation, from the beginning of your birth, the ball has been dropping. So as the ball drops, the gravitational pull grips you more, your cells begin to mutate, and you begin to die. You don't necessarily die as soon as those that are younger, because they're starting off with a force and they're not moving as fast as those that have been here longer based upon the velocity. So the longer you've been here based upon time, the faster you will perish. Unless you perish from someone victimizing you or taking advantage of you, manipulating you, or killing you, some serial killer or mass murderer. So that means that everyone's prone to that darkness at old age, cell mutation, or possibly being killed or an accident. The question would be is if we can remove ourselves from that gravitational force, that accident, that mass murder, serial killer, or that cell mutation wouldn't take place. And the reason being is because if the gravity doesn't grip you, that will allow you to reach a certain speed. Just imagine if I take the ball, which is you, and I drop the ball, that's literally confined in gravity. But if I take you and I throw you at 7 miles per second, you're going to now be able to reach a level of speed to where the gravity is not going to have an effect on you. So you're going to now orbit, as they call the sun. That means you're going to be so far ahead of those that are trying to destroy you. But what happens if you break free altogether? That means you're free indeed. I'm one to believe that we haven't reached a higher level of awareness because we don't have the mind to know that we didn't know. As a result, we're all falling. And as a result, based upon the laws of thermodynamics, entropy continues to increase, chaos and disorder. And we built our mind in darkness. We came up with false religion, false doctrine. That's why we got so many different religions. Everyone's fighting one another. They kill you. Buddhists will kill you. Hinduism, Muslims will kill Christians, and Christians. Look at what's going on in Israel. They're killing each other. That's supposedly the place, Jerusalem, where Christ was born. That's not true. Unfortunately, the undeveloped mind has literally came up with fables and stories, and as a result, has caused all to miss the mark. Everything is not as it appeared from Genesis to Revelation, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It's a fable, it's a parable, it's an allegory. Unfortunately, your illiterate mind caused you to make it true. So as a result of making it true, you fail to realize that you must become who you're seeking to find. And in order to become, you must leave that gravitational pull and ascend to where the stars are. In other words, you have to reach that speed. Energy equals matter at the speed of light. They talked about antimatter and matter. In other words, the world itself at the beginning of the universe was comprised of 50% matter and 50% antimatter. They can't seem to find the antimatter. Most physicists can't seem to find it. They don't understand why it's not there. It was there when everything started. The reason it's not there is because we have to produce it. Nothing is as they believe it is. The mind itself has to reach the antimatter, and subsequently that will be the annihilation, and now a star is born. It's sad that we unfortunately built institutions, from educational systems to companies, and failed to realize we built these institutions with broken minds, undeveloped minds. We failed to realize that we came up with inventions such as gasoline in flight, planes, trains, and failed to realize we're all traveling in gravity. And as a result of traveling in the gravity, you're going to have decay and you're going to perish. But it works. It's a false sign and a wonder, as they call it. It's not real. It's real to you, but it's a false reality. And as a result, you're utilizing the poison that you invented. Now you're selling the poison to make money based upon oil. And as a result, the poison in which you're selling is killing those that are using the poison. No different than electricity and radiation. The only thing we needed to do was first strengthen our mind. If we strengthen our mind, you wouldn't need to utilize electricity nor gasoline, because the mind would have reached a level in which it would have been at absolute negative 273.15 Celsius minus friction and heat, and would have been teleporting. And there wouldn't have been distance. We would have stopped time. I know I just went somewhere. I just wanted to go there for a moment. Every now and then, my spirit leads me where I think it should go, but we must begin to understand that we are, unfortunately, illiterate. You're one step ahead of cavemen, but yet you think cavemen are illiterate and primitive, but you're one step ahead of them. But the question is, who's after you? I'm one to believe that there are billions of light years after you, but we must bring those light years into now. And as a result of bringing them into now, we can change the world right now. We don't have to wait for someone to say we were illiterate, we were primitive, we were just nasty, killing each other, acting a damn fool. We must begin to understand that we are being controlled and manipulated because we have not the mind to break out of that prison, out of gravity, out of the matrix. However, we must also come to realize that we do have the mind. It's just that we have to bake the cake. We have the ingredients. You got the prefrontal cortex, hippocampus, the amygdala, but you have to be able to reach a higher level of cognition and awareness. In order to do that, you have to think outside the box. And as a result of thinking outside the box, you now own the box. And as a result of now owning the box, it's our responsibility to take our brothers and sisters to a place in which they never known existed. And as a result, you will no longer have racism, black and white. You will no longer have wars in countries, 190 plus countries fighting one another over minerals that are meaningless to those of us that are broken out of the system. So I wanted to come on. I want you all to have a nice weekend. I want you to know I'm going to take it a little deeper than we've taken it before. I want you to know that religion is what's killing us, because everyone's believing in something, but they fail to realize what they need to believe in is what's within them. The kingdom is in you. You must manifest that power, that light, which is what they call God. And as a result, we would literally reverse the laws of thermodynamics. And the glass that's shattering all around you will reconfigure itself and position itself back where it needs to be. And as a result, we will be heading towards the truth. Shout out to my grandbaby Noah. Granddaddy, love you so much, son. You're looking handsome. Listen to your mother and father. Winston, you and Catherine continue to grind. Dad's so proud of you. Shout out to Walter as well as Zion. Zion, Dad's there for you, sweetie. Love you so much. Shout out to Gabe as well as Danielle. Shout out to you and your family. But more importantly, remember that we must put in the work so our grandbabies and great-grandbabies don't have to go through what we experienced as children growing up. The time is not tomorrow. The time is today. Faith is not an option. And we must take that mountain by any means necessary. God bless.